I'm back at work on the Thunderbird, and today, like so many other days, I'm dealing with rust. This time it's rust inside the rockers. So you can see this runs the entire length of the car. You've got this little diagonal panel in the middle, and it's pretty rusty. And it's also hard to get to. On this side, I've got a little plate cut out so I can see in it. The other side doesn't have that. So what I've done to prepare for this is I've tried to spray air through here, use a vacuum. I try to get out anything that I can. There was lots of little pieces of loose rust. There was dirt. There were some evidence of a mouse nest. So I've spent a lot of time getting as much of the loose particles off as I can, but there's really not much of a chance to go in there and clear the rust out. So what I want to do is I want to spray it with something that'll stop the rust and keep it from rusting further. And fortunately, if you look on the left, you can see that there are drain holes on the bottom. These run the length of the car. It's about every 2 feet. And there's one set to the left, and there's also a set to the right of that panel, so you can access both sides of it. And the product we're trying today is from Eastwood. It's internal frame coating. It's basically like a can of spray paint. It comes with a tube, and this tube is about 2 feet long, and it's got a nozzle on the end that sprays in all directions. So the idea is that you put it through a small hole, and then you spray it around, and you should be able to coat everything. The question is, does it work? So let's find out. So I've got my setup here. I've got the can of frame coating, and what I found is very useful is this handy dandy coat hanger. I just tape the tube to it. If you just use the tube, you don't really get much control. So I think this works a lot better. And what they tell you to do is to push it all the way in and then spray on your way out. And it's just that easy, right? Well, here's the thing. If you look, you can see that it's spraying in 3 directions, but you're not that far away from the surface. So what you end up with is a streak like you see on the left, and there's probably 2 other streaks. So this definitely is not a one and done situation. You need to go back in. I had to spray it in all directions. I tried to move it around. I tried to rotate the hose so that you're spraying in different directions. I went on both sides of the car, back and forth. I probably went into each of the drain holes 3 or 4 or 5 times before I got something that looked like a good coating. But in the end, this is what I got. It's a pretty good result. You can see a little bit at the top that's missed, but overall, I feel pretty good about this. I think it worked well, especially, getting both sides of that little panel. I think it's a worthwhile product, and I'll feel better about closing up that area now that I know it's not going to rust anymore. In using this product, I did find a few helpful hints that might save you a little bit of trouble. The first one I mentioned before is to use a rod. The tube that comes with this, it's coiled up in a little bag. It's hard to get the curve out of it. So when you're using it, you stick it in the hole, and it's basically going to curve toward one side, and you're not going to get much coverage. Any rod would do. I found a coat hanger is a good size for me, as long as it fits through the hole and is something that gives you a little more control about where you're spraying. The next thing that I figured out is you should wear PPE. There's a lot of fumes to it, so you definitely want a respirator. It's also pretty messy. Gloves are important. Honestly, what a lot of people do, and it's really easy to do, is when you stick the tube in, you're spraying as you're pulling out, and it's kind of hard to tell where the end of it is. So you see a lot of people pull it out while it's still spraying, and it just sprays everywhere. I was watching a video the other day on the web, and the guy, on his first pass, he was wearing a respirator and a t-shirt, and then after he got sprayed in the face, sprayed on his arms, he came back on the other passes and he was dressed like a mummy, long sleeves, and had something over his head. And at the very least, wear eye protection. You'll notice it's something that I didn't do, and I should have, but the reason that I didn't do it is because I also marked the end of the tube, and that's pretty important. It was helpful because I am taping the tube to the coat hanger. And so when I got to the end, there's kind of a stop there. I could feel it, that I was at the end of the tube. So that saved me from spraying it everywhere, but it's still not a bad idea to wear some eye protection. And that's what I did on the rest of the car. I didn't show it here, but this was the first part that I did. And after that, I used a full face mask. Part of that was for the eye protection, and part of that is because the fumes are very strong and the respirator doesn't really do the trick. So I used the full face mask that I normally wear for painting. Another thing you can see from the video is that making multiple passes is pretty much required if you want to get good coverage. And that was interesting to find out because I've used this before in places where I couldn't really see where it was going, which is kind of what it's intended for. And it sprays everywhere. You can sort of, if you start with it outside, you can see it sprays in every direction. You can hear it making a bunch of noise. It creates a lot of mist. So I think a lot of people get the idea that if you just spray it once, then you're coating the entire inside. And what you could see from the video inside is that's just not the case. So you definitely want to make multiple passes, and you want to really be thinking about what it's doing on the inside, how it's basically making a streak. So I would say, 4 or 5 or 6 passes. I went through about 2 or 3 cans doing just the rocker panels and a little bit of the subframes. Another thing that's important is to use a drop cloth because it's fairly thin, and any little hole that you have, it's going to drip out of. There's the factory holes, and then in a car like this, there's a lot of non-factory holes. So it's definitely helpful because it's a tough product to get off the floor once it's on there. And then also clean as you go for the same reason. One thing I was concerned about at the beginning was that the tube was going to clog up, so I didn't want to take very big breaks when I was spraying. But it is helpful to stop every once in a while and just take a rag and clean it off the bottom of the car, because you're going to end up with it running all over the place. And it's a lot easier to clean when it's wet, as you can imagine. And I think that pretty much covers it. If you've got any questions or you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments. And if you like the video, let me know. I don't make a lot of videos. I watch a lot of videos, and I thought this would be a good chance to contribute something that might be useful. So I hope you found this useful, and thanks for watching.